Okay, the Lee Perfect Powder Measure. It's a new product I got. Gonna try it out. Somebody will go, well, why do you need a powder measure when I got two Lymans? Whenever you look into products, one good thing about the internet is you can see reviews. And a lot of places that sell these have reviews about this powder measure. Now, it costs about $25 as compared to, I think, the other lowest cost one would be Frankford Arsenal, and everything else is $60 or above $100 for powder measures. You can buy used ones and everything else, and I did. And the problem I had with the Lees is using bullseye or very fine powder would start binding the drum up after about 100 throws or so. So when I got into a long session, my powder measure would bind up on me. And it's just the nature of the powder. I believe most powder measures, and that's why I'm making this video, is to give you an idea on this one. And the reason I bought it has to depend on how it functions, depends on the type of powder you're using. Some powder measures don't like one type of powder more than the other, and it can impede your use of it. This here, like I said, it's inexpensive, 25 bucks. And all the reviews, when they use the real fine powders for pistol, throwing light charges, the reviews were good. When you start getting into extremely large, like rifle charge with stick powder, then the reviews kind of drop down. So I got this because I just wanted a little simple powder measure to set and throw 2-3 grains of fine pistol powder. So that's why I bought it. It's the whole idea behind it. But when you get it, and you know, when I seen it's all made out of plastic, it kind of made me nervous. It's disassembled, so there is some assembly required. There are instructions. You get you get your screws, you get a kind of a steel bracket to mount it to the bench. And here, you get everything out of there. Okay. So you have the basic unit. One feature I like about this is pretty convenient is you can rotate this top. If you look down into the bottom, there's a hole there. And if you go all the way over facing it this way, which if you're facing it would be all the way to your left, it shuts it off. And then when you turn it this way, all the way to your right when facing, it opens up to where the powder will go down into the measure. There's also a little screw here, which I believe is a drain. So if you see the screw right there, if you permanently mount this, there's a way for you to drain the powder out without having to disassemble or take it off the bench, which is a nice feature. And your barrel, and this is how you adjust how much powder you drop. So the first thing you have to assemble is the spout, which is a knurled nut with a washer and a tube. And when it comes in, it's pushed up like that. You want to back this out a little and give it a little room, or it won't go on. And you take the body, and there's a rubber washer kind of holds it in place. And you screw that in by hand till it's tight. Now you have your bracket, and there's slots for 2 bolts, and I believe like a sheet metal screw goes into this top hole here. So looking through, I see the machine screws, and this screw here is the one I believe that goes up in there. Stabilize it, so get that in the back. Okay, then you have these 2 screws with nuts. You put them through their T-slots in this bracket, see? And you slide them over, and then you would take the nut on this side, or the other way, whatever way is easier for you, and tighten it down. Well, I'm going to do that, and then I ain't going to waste time showing you me tighten down a couple nuts. Okay, there we have the powder measure assembled. The bolts come through, the screw, and now you got it to where you can mount it to your bench. They provide you with wood screws to do that. I'm going to just clamp it, have a temporary thing set up. Hopefully that will be stable on this flimsy table that I use. So now we're going to set it up, look at how it functions, go over the instructions here. It gives you a chart giving you an idea or how to use the little micrometer setting on the measure and see how accurate the charges are thrown here. So I'm going to set her up and get ready to throw some charges. Okay, we got the measure mounted, got some bullseye in there. That's what I'm going to throw. I have it shut off. If you take the instructions, okay, it gives you, so hang on to these instructions. It tells you how to use this little micrometer thimble here. There's a chart that gives you for each grain of powder a number. I'm using bullseye, so that number is 0.1064. I multiply that by 5.2, the amount of grains I want to throw, and it tells me to turn this dial to 55. Okay, now I'm not quite sure. We're going to see how it works. 55. So I think that should be 5 turns. Three. Five. And then another 5. So lined up here on the thimble, we'll just turn it to 5 on the dial. Like that. I'll set my scale to 0 and we'll throw a few charges and then see what we end up with. Okay, using the instructions and guesstimating the turns, I come up with what I was looking for, 5.2, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to throw several charges and double check and make sure, but for $25 it's a pretty neat little device, even though it's made out of plastic. But you know, you got to be realistic. You're not going to buy nothing for 25 bucks that isn't a little cheesy. But it seems to work. And if you're on a tight budget or really don't want to outlay or don't reload an awful lot, this may be something to look into. It's looking like it's not that bad of a deal. Now I'm going to, you know, I got the adjustment right. It's throwing what I want. Now I got to see if it repeats it. So let me throw some charges and see what I end up with. Okay, going by the instructions and setting the micrometer style barrel here, I mean the first throw was very close, almost right on. But then it's with any powder measure, once you set it, throw about 5-10 charges, just throw them, dump them back in the hopper, then get a reading, let it settle down. Because I threw a few charges and it kind of went high, about 4 or 5 tenths, about half a grain. So then I just turned it back and then tightened this down a little bit and got it to where it's throwing the charge I want, the weight I want. So it was very minor adjustment. And I've thrown about 20 charges now into cases, and it varies 1/10 of a grain like it should. And the action isn't terrible. The only thing I don't like is that I can't get a tray under this in this setup. So I have to take one case at a time and charge it. And the plastic operates fairly smooth, you know, using the fine powder. So really, if you want to keep it on a budget and, you know, something, it does work, you know, even though it's all plastic. If you just take your time and are careful with it, it'll probably do exactly what you want. I mean, you know, it's not a wild variance or anything like that. So, you know, now I got a little measure I can set and use. So I recommend it, you know. I mean, yeah, the more expensive measures are probably more convenient in that, but like I said, if you're on a limited budget, this ain't a bad deal for $25, and it works all right.